Whiskey 9 Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf, Roger. Request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. 7 November 8-5, and 8-5, 7 November, say again. 7 November, go. I copied a while ago, 1 Charlie transmission that my thing used, November, go. 1 Charlie, and 8-5, this is 7 November, Charlie. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, reference to your last, you're bringing 158 extra 5 the 1200 between teams, that's local. Also request 3 units take outbound Nexus to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for pause. This is the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that.
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf, my unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha, Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Yeah, I never took a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9 Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. This is Whiskey 9 go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo.
Hey, we're live again. I have to leave probably within an hour, and so I'm just going to hop right into it. There's a ton of bills on the floor. Here we go. I will stop yapping. Let me get this to where the good thing about doing it after it's already happened is we can skip all the nonsense, right? It's been waiting 37 minutes. Let me just get to the beginning here.
Subcommittee, very thoughtfully, I will remind you.
Welcome.
I'm supportive of many of the bills on today's agenda, as there are important measures that will streamline the delivery of benefits for veterans and their families by modernizing the GI Bill program, providing additional resources and affordability to disabled veterans, and improving the VA home loan program. In accordance with committee rules, the subcommittee has contacted the Congressional Budget Office seeking informal preliminary cost estimates for each of the bills being considered today. Many of these preliminary scores are only a range of potential costs because the subcommittee still has not received official cost estimates on the bill from the Congressional Budget Office. And unfortunately, none of these bills being considered today include the offset that will be required to move them forward in the legislative process. So we're going to try.
I want to expand upon that because I've been harping on that a lot. Any veteran bill requires an offset from here on out. What that means is new taxpayer dollars cannot fund veteran bills, new veteran benefits. It must be pulled from somewhere else where money has already been allocated. If you don't know, that is a huge problem, a huge roadblock, and it's what led to some disabled veterans paying for other disabled veterans benefits because you're not disabled enough. Anyways, here we go.
To figure out how to get this done because there are, as I said, a lot of bills here.
Hearings are boring, so buckle up.
From both sides of the aisle that really have a lot of merit for our veterans. We want to make sure that we're not passing legislation out of the subcommittee that would increase the debt for the American taxpayers. We also want to make sure that we're passing stuff through the subcommittee that I think is going to help our veterans. One of the provisions within the bill we consider today would increase the monthly housing allowance for on-the-job training and apprenticeship programs. America's veterans should be able to pursue whatever education route they prefer to attain meaningful employment. Another bill on today's agenda would streamline the way VA currently pays its providers for automobile adaptive equipment and provide additional oversight to the timeliness of these adaptive vehicles. Another bill we plan to consider today would add emergency technologies into the Vet Tech program so that the VA is identifying emerging technologies and the routes to get veterans into these critical career paths. I still have concerns about several of the bills we're marking up today and the amendments we received that were late. My committee, my colleagues across the aisle were not afraid to call it the administration, nor was I, to be crystal clear. The last time the VA showed up here, they were late and they put us in a bind, which I don't appreciate at all. I just want to quote Ranking Member Takano from that hearing. We did not receive the testimony until after 6 p.m. last night, giving us little opportunity to review it prior to this hearing. Today, he proceeded to say this is inexcusable. This should never happen again. And I want to reiterate that it will not happen again, or I will lodge an even larger protest with the chairman. So all of the amendments that were past the 1430 deadline will not be considered today. I'll note that there are multiple opportunities to improve and make necessary changes to the bills on the agenda. The Ranking Member, Mr. Pappas, and I will continue to work with our colleagues on the committee and any stakeholders that have feedback on these bills as we continue to work through the legislative process. I look forward to continuing to make necessary changes to legislation before any consideration before the full committee.
Thank you. I live streamed the other hearing, which was very boring. Went to church, did some recording stuff, hurried back. Now I'm here again. Oh, and I posted a video about Elizabeth Hartman and that company. So
I'm very proud of the nonpartisan work of the subcommittee we continue to do, and I believe that the bills we're considering and the manner in which we're considering them today truly reflects that process. I look forward to working with Ranking Member Pappas, as I always do, and other members of the subcommittee to find reasonable offsets to these bills. I now recognize the distinguished Ranking Member.
Hey, you're a beast too, Raider HQ. Sorry. You're great.
From the great state of Connecticut.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Live free or die.
Well, I would prefer to live free at this point, sir.
Okay.
So I'd like to recognize Mr.
Join
Pappas
or die.
for any open remarks you may have.
Or die.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate how you always try to keep the work here as efficient as possible. We all will like quick markups, but I think it's important that we utilize the time on this subcommittee as best we can to debate and make improvements to legislation that's under consideration before us, not just giving them the green light and passing the buck to the full committee to take care of it. So many of the bills before us today were on our January legislative hearing. We received feedback on them from VSOs and the Department of Veterans Affairs. And as such, we should be using this time to take recommendations we received, to give them the consideration that they are owed, and updating legislation before us. That's what I intend to try to do today with amendments that I want to offer. Now, it can be tempting to say, we'll just fix these bills at full committee, but that negates the very purpose of this subcommittee and the markup process. So as a chair and ranking member of the Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity, I think we should be debating and working for the best policy for these bills under consideration. And there's some really good, worthy bills that we're talking about today. This is our job, not something that we should just pass off to the full committee. So I understand that some of the legislation before us today is awaiting technical assistance still from VA. I also understand that some of my amendments today may get voted down by the majority because we only received the legislative text just yesterday from the majority, and they might not feel like they have enough time to review them. To that, I would say there's no need to rush at the expense of better policy for our veterans. We're all after that. So, Mr. Chairman, if bills aren't ready, still need work, or lack bipartisan agreement, let's keep working on them, and let's not necessarily just force them through today. So I commit to you to working with you as closely as we possibly can on the bills before us under consideration and on all the other issues and priorities of our subcommittee. So I'm grateful for that. I just want to point out one additional fact here, and that's that we have an equal number of Democratic and Republican bills on the agenda today. So I'm grateful for that. I think this is a good sign of the bipartisanship of this subcommittee. But this is happening after an imbalance that occurred in previous markups of the subcommittee. So I think that we need to continue to look at the whole package of legislation that we've moved through the subcommittee and making sure that that all points of views are reflected here. So I'm grateful for your leadership, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. The ranking member yields back. Yeah, you know what, Chris, you're right. If we're saying this is a nonpartisan committee, it needs to be so. And it's going to sound like a shocking statement, but just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you can't have great ideas. And a lot of the amendments that are here are great ideas. So I will now ask unanimous consent to consider the en bloc the following bills that do not have amendments. HR 7049, Improving the Mental Health Care and Coordination for Homeless Veterans Act. HR 3159, Improving SCRA Benefit Utilization Act. HR 5436 to amend Title 38 United States Code to prohibit an educational institution from withholding a transcript from an individual who pursued a course or program of education, such as the institution using post 9/11 educational assistance. HR 7150 to amend Title 38 United States Code to require the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to submit to Congress quarterly report for housing loans insured, guaranteed, or under the laws administered by the Secretary and for other purposes, HR 1957 and Veterans Homeless Act of 2025, and HR 1965 Veterans Education Assistance Adjustment Act. I would ask that the reading of the bills be dispensed with and that the bills be open to amendment at any point. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize myself for a moment to say a few words about these bills. These bills are going to require employees to conduct a VA homeless assessment and upload the assessment to the electronic health record to make sure that no veteran falls through the cracks. Increases the stipend for books, supplies, and other educational costs from $1,000 to $1,400 and allow for an annual increase based on consumer price index.
Absolutely
Increase the
need that
HUD-VASH
stipend
reporting
increase.
requirements. I just want to take a second to speak about that very specifically. We have homeless veterans, and it's unacceptable. And we have so much money sitting here in these HUD-VASH programs that people just don't know about. So when I go back to the district, they're like, why do we have homeless veterans? I say, do you realize we have millions of dollars worth of HUD-VASH vouchers that are not being used and they have no idea? And so Mr. Takano put this in, and it's a great idea. So we need to get this done so that the monies that we allocate as members of Congress actually get to these homeless veterans, and a lot of it's just an education process. So I'm actually very proud of Mr. Takano for doing that. Including information for the Service Member Civil Rights Relief Act that would improve consumer financial protections to expand their financial literacy, prohibit educational institutions from withholding the transcripts of individuals who owe a debt to a school, provide additional reporting requirements on the loans guaranteed insured by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Do any members wish to speak on any of the bills included in the N block? Okay, hearing none, I now recognize Representative Barrett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the subcommittee failure report HR 7049, HR 3159, HR 5436, HR 7150, HR 1957, and HR 1965 to the full committee.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pappas. We'll move that
224
forward in a second, but I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas.
Signed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be clear that I'm supporting this en bloc package. There are a number of good bills here. I will highlight a few of them. Representative McLean Delaney's bill to improve service members' knowledge and utilization of their SCRA benefits. Representative Mannion's bill that will stop the practice of transcript withholding for veterans and family members using their post 9/11 GI benefits. And Representative Whiteside's bill that will require VA to publish more data on the VA home loan program to ensure proper oversight. I also want to draw attention to Representative Vasquez's bill to raise books and fees, that stipend for post 9/11 GI bill to match inflation.
Yes.
It's one that members will be hearing a lot about as veterans from VFW and Student Veterans of America will come to the Hill next week to tell us about their specific priorities.
Yeah.
All four of these bills are non-controversial, have bipartisan support.
When I was
and are
in
good
my
policy.
undergrad and grad school, I had to pay out of pocket just a little bit for books and various programs to use because the stipend hasn't been increased in a while.
I appreciate these members who may not be on our committee, but nonetheless took an interest in veterans issues, took the time to hear from veterans, and have presented us with policies to make VA better. The remaining two bills deal with veteran housing and security, and I'm glad we're finally taking action on these bills because it's our shared priority on the subcommittee. So the chairman and I have come to agreement to move both Mr. Valadeo's Improving Mental Health Care and Coordination for Homeless Veterans Act and Ranking Member Takano's bill, which you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the End Veteran Homelessness Act. As part of this agreement, the full committee will take up Ranking Member Takano's bill at the next markup. We'll work together to meet with and encourage our counterparts on the Financial Services Committee who share jurisdiction over the HUD-VASH program to take swift action here. The End Veteran Homelessness Act would be a huge step to quite literally end veteran homelessness by expanding the eligibility for HUD-VASH to housing insecure veterans who have been ineligible or unable to access it. HUD-VASH is the most successful permanent housing program in history. This change will simultaneously increase voucher utilization while driving the number of veterans experiencing homelessness down, two data points that have not budged over the last few years. This bill will put veterans that are currently homeless into permanent housing, and I look forward to working with Chairman Van Orden as we move this through the committee process. On Mr. Valadeo's bill, we're awaiting technical assistance back from VA to help improve the bill, but we've also agreed that changes will be made to incorporate feedback from the testimony the National Coalition of Homeless Veterans provided in our January hearing and informal feedback received from providers and grantees serving homeless veterans. The chairman and I further agreed to change the scope of the bill from VA homelessness program employees who are already largely required to do the assessments outlined in the original bill to cover all VA employees and those working with community partners. While the experts under VA homelessness program office will still do the assessments, we want to ensure that the people directly interacting with veterans experiencing housing insecurity are empowered and required to identify and connect these veterans and their families to resources. So we'll need to work through what this will look like for VA's community partners, how these changes will interact with VA's electronic health record, and if the VISN or VA central office will be responsible for these changes. There's certainly a lot of work to do on Mr. Valadeo's bill, but these changes will be for the better. And I'm excited that we are moving 2 substantive bills addressing veteran homelessness. We still need to consider and advance Dr. Dexter's Every Veteran Housed and Mr. Riley's Veteran Housing Promise Act, 2 more freshman bills from freshman members that are committed to addressing housing insecurity among veterans. So moving HR 1957 and 7049 is a good start, and I hope we can continue this bipartisan momentum, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. There is a motion on the table from Mr. Barrett there to favorably forward bills included in the en bloc to the full committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the bills are favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. It's kind of fun to do that once in a while. HR 5634, the Veterans Flight Training Responsibility Act of 2025. I now call up HR 5634, the Veterans Flight Training Responsibility Act of 2025. The clerk shall report the bill.
HR 5436.
The bill was circulated in advance and pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is open to amendment at any point. I now recognize myself for the purpose of offering an amendment to the nature of the substitute. The clerk shall report the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to
I ask
HR.
unanimous consent that the further reading of the amendment of the nature and the substitute is dispensed with. I ask that it be considered base text for the purposes of the markup. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. This ANS is going to allow student veterans to use an entitlement up to $119,684 for flight training and tuition, flight training tuition and fees. Currently, there is no overall limit on what the veteran can pay, but they can receive up to $29,920 a year in education benefits. This bill would prevent schools from continuing to overcharge veterans. It would also allow veterans to participate in flight training year-round. Additionally, it would create a transfer system from a hard cap to months and all for unused benefits to be credited back to the veteran. Do any members wish to comment on the amendment in the nature of substitute to HR 5634? The chair now recognizes Ranking Member Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I appreciate correcting the introduced language to match what the House last Congress passed. And so I'll support this ANS and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Are there any amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 5634? Hearing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 5634. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is agreed to. No. The motion to reconsider has been laid upon the table. I now recognize Rep. Barrett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee forward HR 5634 as amended favorably to the House of Representatives.
The question is on favorably forwarding the bill HR 5634 as amended to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to and HR 5634 as amended is forwarded favorably to the full committee. The motion is to reconsider is laid upon the table. I will now call up HR 7038, the Cruise Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
HR 7083 to amend
Text
Title
was
30.
circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I ask the reading of the bill be dispensed with and be open to amendment at any point. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Do any members wish to speak on this bill? The chair now recognizes Ranking Member Pappas.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said during the legislative hearing in January, we absolutely need to ensure that vendors are getting paid on time. We've heard directly from them about how unpaid invoices are a drag on their business, and some vendors are no longer working with veterans because of it. So I understand the frustration with VA. They should have solved this issue on their own years ago, but because this requires two agencies within the department to work together, communication silos have impeded progress, and it's hard to assign accountability or responsibility to a single senior executive or entity. But Mr. Chairman, this is one of the bills I was talking about not rushing to failure on. I understand that we're expecting written technical assistance from VA this Friday and an update on the future of this program in the next week or two. VA also stated in their testimony before us in January and on follow-up calls with staff that they weren't sure what benefit program we were even trying to address in the legislation. So VA also identified that the central office doesn't have the space, full-time employees, or expertise to process these claims as required by the bill currently. Furthermore, the legislation currently does not have a definition for when the 30-day processing timeline outlined in the bill actually starts. So I feel like we need to get a fix for this, and I understand the implications if we sacrifice better policy to fix this for the sake of pushing it through this committee process today. At this point in the 119th Congress, we only have one shot at getting this right, and it'll take several years for the necessary changes to address these unanswered questions to see Congress act and to have them implemented by VA. So this is going to be too long for many small businesses who are doing this great work to survive. So it has to be done right the first time. Whatever happens with the amendment that I'll be proposing, I look forward to and expect that we can continue to work together on this bill as we receive further information from VA. With that, I yield back.
The ranking member yields back. The chair now recognizes Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the ranking member and other members of the committee for considering my bill today, HR 7083, the Centralized Reimbursement for Upgraded Innovative Services Equipment Act, or the CRUISE Act for short. My bill would require the VA to develop a plan and centralize all payments for the Adaptive Automotive Equipment Program. This is the program that furnishes veterans with an adaptive vehicle or other mobility equipment that they may need for their particular circumstance. The purpose behind this bill is the fact that the VA has been delinquent in furnishing prompt payment to vendors that do this kind of work. The concern that we have is that this is going to ultimately lead to fewer and fewer vendors available to help veterans in this effort. Now, I recognize that the VA has been a little bit slow in giving us their advice as to how we can craft this in the most professional way. I appreciate that the minority has put forward an amendment on this. However, this bill is done for a reason, which is that the VA has not fixed this problem on their own. And ultimately, we have to make the rules under which they are governed by. And that is important to hold them accountable to that standard. I've heard from far too many vendors that they have had delinquent and delayed payment for far too long. In some instances, more than 90, 120, 180 days or longer to get payment, which is far beyond the standard that we should expect. My bill will address that. It will be done in a centralized way that will bring about...
The payment is an issue because if the VA is going to rely on community care, imagine running your own practice. You know VA sucks at paying. You're going to be less likely to accept veteran patients. So that's a big one, especially if the VA is going to put all their eggs in that community care basket.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to HR 7083, offered by
Ask
Mr.
unanimous
Pappas.
consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is now recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I offer this amendment to the CRUISE Act today to identify, to address identified issues with the bill as drafted. I've no doubt that the bill will be modified further as we get more information from VA, but this amendment will fix issues with the legislation that we know about today. Put simply, the amendment will require that VA specialize processing of these claims at up to 5 VBA regional offices instead of centralizing within VA central office, which doesn't have the capacity, capability, workforce, or supervisory structure to process these claims. This prevents us from creating a whole new administrative structure within the central office, duplicating efforts, and wasting more FTE slots. The amendment also defines the start of the 30-day window in the legislation as the day the vehicle modification is delivered or accepted by the veteran. This ensures that the bill does what we expect it to do without any confusing, misleading metrics. This means vendors will be paid within 30 days of delivering their work. Finally, the amendment adds a requirement that VA must provide a public report every 6 months for 2 years on the average amounts of time it takes each VBA regional office to make payments. The report is required to break out the amounts of time claims were waiting with VHA, VBA, or the claimant to provide additional information so we can identify where the bottlenecks are. So I urge all my colleagues to support this common sense amendment and am serious about our intention to continue working with you on this underlying legislation. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak on this amendment. As stated earlier, this amendment was not submitted on time or circulated in advance. And we can't control the administration. And I was just as harsh on the Biden administration as I just was at the Trump administration about getting stuff here on time to give us the ability to reflect on things in a thoughtful manner. And it's inexcusable from any administration in the executive branch. What we can control is ourselves. And I expect to do that. And I expect you to hold me to the same standard. And I would appreciate that. This amendment would assign 5 VA regional offices to centralize the payments within the automobile adaptive program. This does not specify how those regional offices would be assigned. This amendment would also define the 30-day start clock for when the vehicle modernization begins and add additional reporting requirements. I do think some of the changes need to be made to this bill at the full committee once VA provides technical assistance, which, as Mr. Pappas said, will be this Friday. And I look forward to working with the ranking member on ways to get this done. And with that, I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment. Do any other members wish to comment on this amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the ranking member Pappas' amendment to HR 7038. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further? No, hearing none. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Hearing none, I now recognize Representative Barrett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the subcommittee favorably report HR 7083 to the full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward the bill to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bill HR 7038 is favorably forwarded to the full committee. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Kind of fun. I now call up HR 7103, the Improving Emerging Tech Opportunities for Veterans Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
HR 7103 to amend Title 38 United States Code to
The
provide.
text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. Without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point. I now recognize Representative Amade for the purpose of offering an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your support as a co-sponsor of my legislation, HR 7103, the Improving Emerging Tech Opportunities for Veterans Act. We have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103 offered
I
by
ask
Mr.
unanimous
Hamid.
consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute be dispensed
Getting
with. I ask
bullied.
that it be considered for base text for the purpose of the markup. Without
So
objection,
it's
so ordered.
this isn't the
I now
most
recognize
exciting thing to
Representative
watch
Amade
at
for-
all, but it is important to have a pulse on
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the
I'm proud to
veteran
offer an
bills
amendment
that
in the
are
nature of a
in the
substitute
space.
to my bill to reform vet tech and the transition assistance program to include, quote, emerging technologies, such as AI and semiconductors, so that no veteran is left behind. Under the Trump administration, America is making a generational investment in advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and semiconductor production. This involves billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs. We should not be leaving veterans behind while importing foreign labor to fill jobs that Americans can and should be doing. Veterans are walking out of the military every single day who operated satellite communications, managed classified networks, and maintained weapons platforms. Experiences and qualifications that most engineers in the private sector will never see. These men and women understand the chain of command. They perform under pressure. They have already proven they can master a complex system when the stakes are life and death, real-world consequences. What they lack is a clear pathway from the uniform to the civilian tech workforce. And my amendment in the nature of a substitute expands the vet tech program to include emerging technologies like AI and semiconductor manufacturing, which is bringing billions of dollars of investment into our country and especially my district. Now, it also directs the VA to work with private sector employers and educational institutions to identify
That's
the
gross,
career
dude.
fields of the future and
That's
connect
cold.
veterans with the training they need. And it ensures that information is prominently displayed on the VA website and promoted through transition assistance program. So every separating service member knows these opportunities exist before they enter civilian life. This is not a handout, it's a hand up. Our veterans earned these benefits the hard way, and we're not asking for much. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support my ANS and oppose any duplicative amendment offered by Democrat colleagues. My bill improves vet tech, and the other changes and reforms being proposed today should be pursued in a more appropriate vehicle. And I would gladly join my colleagues on the other side in working together on addressing this separately and apart from my bill today. Now, let's give the veteran the training. Let's give the veteran the shot they earned, and I urge my colleagues to support my amendment in the nature of a substitute. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Do any members wish to comment on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103? Chair now recognizes Ranking Member Pappas for his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And much like the previous bill, we heard from stakeholders in our January ledge hearing about the ways this bill can be improved. And so I have concerns that the bill asks VA to identify emerging industries and determine future employment outlooks, something that it doesn't have expertise in. And I worry that we're setting VA and this program up for failure. I also worry that the legislation tries to push these yet to be set up and unproven programs right into TAP. So I'm thinking if these programs are as good as we're being told, they will naturally rise to the top to be highlighted as part of that time that's already set aside for vet tech in TAP. We can let the program outcomes speak for themselves. I'll be offering amendments later, but I hope that we can work together to find a bipartisan way to make needed improvements to this bill, and I yield back.
Do any other members wish to comment on this amendment in the nature of a substitute? I now recognize, sorry, you do not have an amendment. I now recognize Representative Pappas to offer an amendment number 1 to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Pappas Amendment Number 1, amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would add the text of Mr. Walkinshaw's recently introduced bill, HR 7643 to HR 7103. I appreciate that Mr. Walkinshaw is taking an interest in veterans issues and working to improve the vet tech program. His bill will require that VA implement a priority recommendation from the GAO that the Secretary of VA develop an employment rate calculation consistent with standard approaches used by government or industry entities. It also ensures that bad actors aren't allowed to artificially inflate these employment success numbers by temporarily hiring their own graduates when they can't find employment elsewhere, as we saw under the original vet tech program. In response to the GAO report, VA stated that they will assign a data analyst to conduct the employment data collection once the permanent vet tech program is implemented. VA's own statement should refute any concerns that this amendment will slow implementation of the vet tech program. This amendment will just require that VA does what they said they will do and that the math they use is in line with best practices. We all want an efficient VA to keep bad actors away from veterans benefits, and this amendment will help us do that. So I thank Mr. Walkinshaw for his work, and I urge its adoption. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself in opposition to the amendment. We're going to leave aside the timeliness. But this amendment would add additional VA reporting requirements to VA's vet tech program that is currently in the process of implementation. We look forward to working with the administration and the minority to push for the implementation of vet tech program in Dole. But until vet tech 2.0 has been implemented, I do not see the need for additional reporting requirements at this time. And this is kind of what happens with government. We keep moving goalposts and ask for more reports and all these things. And we just really got to get something going. And I think that this is a virtuous thing to do for our veterans. I urge my colleagues to vote no with me on this amendment. Do any members wish to comment on the amendment? Good. Okay, seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Pappas amendment, ranking member Pappas amendment to the nature, in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I have another amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall, I now recognize, excuse me, the previous amendment is laid upon the table.
Okay.
I now recognize Mr. Pappas to offer amendment number 2 to the amendment in the nature of a substitute for HR 7103.
Okay. I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chairman.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Pappas Amendment Number 2, amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to
I ask
HR.
unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment to be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is now recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This amendment addresses operational issues with the bill as well as other concerns. Operationally, it changes responsibility for determining which industries are emerging with high employment and growth potential from VA to the Department of Labor vets, as VA does not have the capability or expertise and DOL does. It also removes the requirement that VA include the program created by this bill in the Transition Assistance Program. Vet Tech program as a whole is already in the TAP curriculum, and veterans will gain exposure to these programs during that time. TAP is already so time constrained that duplicating content of the programs will hurt service members' transition process. Furthermore, the amendment adds labor unions, veteran service organizations, and consumer protection groups to the critical stakeholder list. I think these groups are important voices and should have a seat at the table, as we need someone looking out for the best interests of the veteran, not just the industry. Lastly, the amendment would remove references to specific industries in the legislative text. I don't think it's appropriate for Congress to be picking specific winners and losers. I agree that the areas listed are exciting avenues for veteran employment right now, but we don't know what the landscape will look like in 6 months, a year, 5 years, or even 10 years down the road. We can give guidance to VA on implementation through report language, but specific industries shouldn't be codified into law. I think these are pretty non-controversial improvements. I urge my colleagues to support them, and I yield back.
I now recognize myself in opposition to the amendment. This amendment would remove VA's collaboration with stakeholders and move it under the Department of Labor. This goes against the committee's reauthorization efforts, and collaboration with VA would like to see in the emerging technology space. Additionally, the members have had no time to properly review this text and consider the consequences of supporting it, as we mentioned earlier. I urge my colleagues to vote no with me on this amendment. Do any other members wish to comment on the amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to the Pappas Amendment number 2, Ranking Member Pappas number 2, to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Are there any further amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103?
Holy crap, dude.
Hearing none, we'll now move to consider the consideration of the next bill. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. The question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 7103. All those in favor say aye. All those say no. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is agreed to. Okay. I now recognize Mr. Barrett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee forward HR 7103 as amended favorably to the full committee.
The question on favorably forwarding the bill HR 7103 as amended to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to, and HR 7103 as amended is forwarded favorably to the full committee. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now call up HR 7141, the Affordable Housing Guarantee Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
HR 7141 to amend Title
The
38.
text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I ask that the reading of the bill be suspended, to be dispensed with, and to be open to amendment at this point. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I recognize myself for a moment to say that this bill would increase the VA home loan guarantee from 25 to 50% for disabled veterans, and this bill would make housing more affordable for veterans and provide a portion of the parity to FHA's 100% guarantee. And that's just the right thing to do, period. I don't know who could possibly object to this. Do any members wish to speak on the bill? The chair now recognizes Ranking Member Pappas for his comments.
Well, thank you, and I'll keep my remarks brief because I got an amendment that I'm going to be offering. But as written, this is basically a $2 billion handout to the mortgage industry. Purpose of VA home loan guarantee is to entice lenders into lending to veterans. There are no shortage of lenders willing to lend to veterans right now. So what do we get by doubling the guarantee? Aside from that, my greatest concern is that there's no requirement that they pass the savings they'd accrue on to veterans under this bill. This bill, as written, would simply socialize the mortgage company's risk without requiring any of them to ensure VA home loans go to the veterans who need them the most. So that doesn't seem right to me, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Do any members wish to offer an amendment? I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas to offer an amendment to HR 7141.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to HR 7141 offered by Mr.
I ask
Pappas.
unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without objection, so ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr.
Holy
Chairman.
crap.
If we're going to increase the VA home loan guarantee and pump $2 billion into the mortgage industry, the mortgage industry should provide better terms for veterans, or open up home loans to veterans who haven't been able to access home ownership before. So this amendment would provide the increased guarantee from Representative Miller-Meek's bill to lenders providing loans to 3 categories. First, disabled veterans with credit scores below 620, like our young veterans just getting out of the military and establishing their credit. Second, disabled veterans with a high debt-to-income ratio, like our veterans on a fixed income. And third, disabled veterans without a credit score, like those transitioning out of incarceration or homelessness. So this amendment would open up the VA home loan program to more veterans, ensure that taxpayer money isn't just going to line the pockets of mortgage executives. And in closing, I'll note that both the Paralyzed Veterans of America and the VA urged changes to the underlying bill back in our January hearing. So I urge colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself to speak on the amendment. This amendment was received at 1900 last night and would only grant the increased home loan guarantee to lenders who provide a loan to disabled veterans with a credit score below 620 with a high debt to income ratio or without a credit score. Now, I'm committed to, and we often forget this word, I'm committed to making the VA Home Loan Guarantee Program, because it is not a loan from the VA, it guarantees a loan from a private lender, more affordable for veterans to look forward to working with a minority and seeking specific changes in advance to move this bill forward because home ownership is part of the American dream. It just simply is. So we want to get this done. We just got to get it done right. So I urge all members to oppose. Do any other members wish to comment on the amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to ranking member Pappas's amendment to HR 7141. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it and the amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further amendments?
I
Hearing
don't
none, we'll
know
now
enough about that bill to say if that amendment was good or not. This is gonna resurface at some point, but now we know the background on it.
Move to consider the next bill. Wait. There's a motion to favorably, no. Okay.
That was the.
Hearing none, I now recognize Representative Barrett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the subcommittee favorably
Thank you. I
report.
appreciate it.
Favorably forward, sorry, I'm having a hard time myself, HR 7141 to the full committee.
There's a motion to favorably forward the bill to the full committee. All those in favor say aye.
So they're
opposed say
saying
no.
yay or nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
And pretty much this dude's a Republican. If he says, I urge my colleagues to say
7141 is
no
favorably
because they
forwarded
have
to the full
more
committee, and the
Republicans
motion
in the
to
committee,
consider is laid upon the
it's
table.
not going to happen.
I now call
And
up
so,
HR 1803, the Fair Access to Co-ops for Veterans
that's pretty much
Act of 2025.
how it's
Clerk
happening.
shall report the bill.
Amendment HR
And
1803
this poor
offered by
kid,
The text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I
Poor
ask that the
kid.
reading of the bill be
he
dispensed with
says
and it be
4
open to
words and he
amendment
even got it
at
wrong.
any point.
Poor guy,
Hearing no
man.
objection, so ordered. I recognize myself for a moment to say that this bill would allow VA home loans to be used for housing cooperatives. Okay, like I said, we want veterans to have
for
access to home ownership.
Markup voting,
Do any members wish to offer an
not quite.
amendment? I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas
This is
to
the
offer an
full
amendment
committee.
in the nature of a
This
substitute
is
to
the
HR
this is the
1803.
subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr.
Until
Chairman. I
they're
have an
able to
amendment.
do
after
yays
this.
or nays.
The clerk shall
Versus
report the
like
amendment.
the green
amendment in
light.
the nature of a substitute to HR
I
1803.
ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. And without objection, bless you. So ordered. The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These changes are non-controversial, mostly technical in nature to ensure that the underlying bill will function properly. The amendment adds clarifying language on how the VA should handle defaults for the VA home loans for co-ops. It also adds language ensuring similar levels of borrower relief for veterans and co-ops as compared to other VA home loan users in the event the co-op becomes insolvent. I understand that the updated language was just received last night, but as we voted to move other bills forward this afternoon that will similarly have to be reviewed and adjusted as they move to full committee, I ask that the majority extend the same courtesy to this bill and this amendment. I urge adoption of the amendment and forwarding the underlying bill to the full committee.
That's right. If he makes 100
Gentleman yields
grand,
back. I now recognize myself to speak on the
he's
amendment.
got a cool job.
I'm opposed to this amendment as written, which is a complete substitute of the text and was only submitted to the committee last night after 1700. As the gentleman knows, amendments in the nature of a substitute are complete replacements of the text of the bill. As such, these amendments are typically submitted earlier so that they can be circulated to all members of the subcommittee for review, and members can draft any amendments they might have to correct the text. Members have had no time to properly review this text and consider the consequences of supporting it. And listen, Chris, I want to get this done. And opening up the VA home loans to co-ops has got to get done, but we have to nail the text because a co-op in New York does not necessarily mean a co-op in the state of Wisconsin or New Hampshire for your case, sir. So we have to get this done. And again, it is my intent, I know it is your intent, to make sure that every single person that served this nation in uniform has the ability to have access to home ownership through the VA Home Loan Guarantee Program. But I just don't think this is ready for prime time. I urge all members to join me in opposing this amendment. Do any other members wish to comment on the amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to Ranking Member Pappas's amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 1803. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further amendments?
This Democrats just getting bullied.
Hearing none?
Pretty
Hearing
much.
none, we'll now move to consider the bill. I now recognize Representative Siscomani from the great state of Arizona for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
much more respected, honorable chairman, I move that subcommittee favorably forward HR 1803 to full committee.
There is a motion to favorably forward the bill to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The bill HR 1803 is favorably forwarded to the full committee, and the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now call upon HR 982, the Warriors to Workforce Act. The clerk shall report the bill.
HR 982 to amend.
Text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules. I ask the reading of the bill be dispensed with and it be open to amendment at any point. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I recognize myself in support of this bill. This is my bill, and it's going to increase the amount of educational assistance paid during the 6 to 12 months apprenticeship or on-the-job training from 80 to 90%. We need the trades, period. So we need more plumbers, pipe fitters, welders, carpenters. We need more people to be able to utilize these apprenticeship programs and on-the-job training, and this is an additional amount of money that's going to help that happen. Do any members wish to speak on this bill? Okay. Do any members wish to offer an amendment? I now recognize Ranking Member Pappas to offer an amendment to HR 820.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have another amendment at the desk.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Amendment to HR 982 offered by Mr. Pappas.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Without
DC
objection,
federal
so ordered.
employees get the
Gentleman is now recognized for 5 minutes to explain
location
the
pay
amendment.
bump because I
Thank you,
got
Mr.
it.
Chairman. I support the underlying bill, but I don't think it goes
$33,000,
far
I think.
enough. We need to take a full look at how the entirety of apprenticeships and OJT programs are run between VA, DOL, vets, and other various employment programs for veterans.
No.
This bill feels like we're working on the periphery margins of the core issues with these programs.
Let me
I
try-
also understand
I'll
the
type out
view
something.
held by some veterans and apprenticeships that if they're using their GI Bill, they should be getting the full housing allowance. They're right that reducing the housing allowance as apprenticeships advance does disincentivize participation and push them to attend traditional higher education. Money talks, and only receiving 80, 60, or even as low as 20% of the housing allowance as your peers will inevitably impact their thinking about their career path. Intertwined with that are the concerns raised by Paralyzed Veterans of America and others at the January Ledge hearing that increasing the housing allowance percentage for only months 7 through 12 will leave a benefits cliff at month 13, the point when most veterans already drop out of their GI Bill apprenticeship programs. So to address that, I'm proposing that we adjust all the step-down rates at once by increasing the housing allowance percentage for months 13 through 18 to 80% from the current 60%, increasing months 19 through 20 from 70% up to 70% from the current 40, and increasing months 24 and beyond to 60% from the current 20. I'm open to doing a full increase across the board, but this amendment keeps with the current structure
people
of the
ask
law.
me, how do I keep up on veteran news,
So I urge adoption of this
you know,
amendment and
faster
forward
than
to the
everyone else?
committee, and I yield back.
Because I watch crap like this all day,
I now
all
recognize
day.
myself to speak on the amendment.
Part of the job.
This amendment would increase
Um,
and
He's going to say no.
expense
Everyone's
for
going to vote
educational
no, and
assistance
that'll be no
paid
because
for
Republicans run the subcommittee. But
24 months. And
what was I saying? Oh, yeah. As a GS-13, I was a step 413 in the DC area. When I was a federal employee, I was making 132 because you get the location bump. I don't know what it's called.
Our veterans,
Um,
educations that they need. And again, you know, I want.
And that's the same for
Join the Navy, I was-
like this lady here, assuming she's a GS employee, she would get the pay bump too. So if that dude could easily be making $100,000, just getting interrupted all the time, you know?
Honest to goodness, I have no idea how that.
And it's funny that he's getting interrupted with a nasally voice. That's what makes it
I
funny.
want to make. I
He has
want
a
to
very nerdy
urge
nasal
my-
voice.
All members, excuse me, to oppose this amendment.
Locality pay. Thank you.
Do any other members wish to comment on the amendment? Seeing none, the question now occurs on agreeing to Ranking Member Pappas'
I wish
amendment
YouTube
to
gave
HR
locality pay. That
982.
would be
All those in favor say aye.
beautiful. I guess they do if you're
all
in
opposed say
America,
no.
the country.
In the opinion of the chairs, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Are there any further amendments? Hearing none, we'll now move to, excuse me. I now recognize ranking. Gosh,
It's almost finished,
you know,
guys.
apparently
Couple
you're
more
a
minutes.
ranking member now. I
Yeah.
now recognize Representative. No, I hope not. Geez, what did I just say? I now recognize Representative Subcommittee from the great state of
Do not,
Arizona
do not want
for a
that,
motion.
Mr. Chairman. But, Mr. Chairman, I enthusiastically move to that the subcommittee favorably forward HR 982 to the full committee.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The bill HR 982 is favorably forwarded to the full committee, and the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I also want to make sure that we understand that that all of these bills on the agenda today have been favorably forwarded to the full committee. I ask unanimous consent that the committee staff be authorized to make technical, clerical, and conforming changes to the bills favorably forwarded today. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I thank the members, Chris, thank you so much, for their attendance today, and the subcommittee is now adjourned.
That's it. We'll have to see the updates on these bills here. They have to get funded. That's the issue. That's the biggest issue is I don't care what it does for veterans. It has to be funded somehow, some way, and it can't be funded via new taxpayer dollars because of an internal HVAC constraint. All right. Anyways, I got to go pick up my kids. I got some youth group church stuff tonight. We're going to be playing some music. So, sorry I wasted everyone's time. Don't worry. My time was also wasted. This is what I do just about every day. So, peace.